Well, here in Britain, the police have had their funding cut repeatedly by a government that urgently needs the money to squander on foreign aid. So they no longer have the ability to fully investigate certain crimes like burglary, assault and vandalism, as they need to focus their dwindling resources on more important things like threatening law-abiding people on the internet. It's become quite the thing for UK police to issue Orwellian warnings on social media that we'll be arrested if we engage in something called hate speech. It's the first thing we hear from them after every Islamic massacre. Well, see for yourself. There'll be another one soon. Hate speech is free speech that hurts people's feelings. It's illegal in Britain because we don't have a First Amendment to protect us from this kind of arbitrary police state law. And the police, for reasons best known to themselves, pay special attention to internet hate speech. They're always telling us how seriously they take it. It's almost as if they prioritise it over real crime for some kind of ideological reason, because it seems they're all over social media, combing out thought criminals like head lice, even though the official legal guidelines make it clear that there's a very high threshold for prosecuting internet hate speech, and that it should only be done in very exceptional circumstances. So you have to wonder why police pay such close attention to it, and why there have been so many arrests, even though it's easy to block people on social media and nobody has to hear from anyone they don't want to. Thousands of people have been arrested in London alone over the last 5 years for comments posted online, while burglaries and other crimes, physical crimes that actually hurt people, are being ignored. Now, what do you think could account for such twisted priorities? Officially, free speech becomes hate speech when it's perceived by the victim, for want of a better word, or any other person, to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on a single characteristic. Now, hostility is not defined precisely, but according to police, it can include unfriendliness or dislike. So quite a broad brush then, or a wide net, depending on how you want to look at it. And the perception of the victim is the defining factor. Whether you're charged with a hate crime or not, and hate speech is a hate crime, depends entirely on somebody else's subjective feelings about the situation, whether it's the alleged victim or somebody else, maybe a passerby who had nothing to do with it, but who just decided to stick their oar in anyway, or maybe even the arresting officer, who may well have progressive views of their own. You see, it doesn't help that hate speech law is framed in loose, subjective terms that, intentionally or not, give police officers discretion to consider their own political views before deciding whether to make an arrest. It all depends on whether, in the officer's judgment, alarm or distress is likely to be caused. If the answer is yes, well then it's hate, even when it isn't. And now you're a criminal, even though you're not, because PC Progressive doesn't like your politics. And according to the Crown Prosecution Service, when charging somebody with a hate crime, there is no need for evidence to prove the aggravating element. Now there's a phrase to ponder in this free society of ours. No need for evidence. The law has gone all progressive, and now hurt feelings are all that's required for us to be arrested as criminals. Eliminating the need for evidence provides a handy shortcut to justice. Social justice, that is, or progressive cultural Marxism, if you prefer. But when the law has to resort to such flimsy grounds, well, you know there's an agenda of urgent suppression, because irresponsible politicians have created a volatile society where a lot of people are very angry, and rather than address that anger and deal with it honestly, they prefer to suppress it so that it comes out later in more harmful ways, which it will, of course. A child could see it, but they choose not to because they don't have the wisdom they were born with. And with swift arrest and zealous prosecution and excessive vindictive punishment for so-called hate speech, it's clear that this is a political law intended to intimidate us into compliance with a progressive social agenda that many of us neither share nor approve of. And our formerly neutral, now progressive police are fully on board because so many senior officers have a progressive social agenda of their own that goes beyond enforcing the law. It's the familiar common purpose effect, leading beyond authority. You see, for years, police forces in Britain and other public bodies have spent large amounts of public money sending selected people to be trained by the secretive left-wing Freemasonry Common Purpose. I've talked about this sinister organisation before. I'll include a link to the relevant video. Essentially, they train in secret selected people in positions of influence to lead beyond authority, as they put it. In other words, to extend their range of influence behind the scenes by cooperating with like-minded others to move society in a more progressive direction than most people would necessarily agree to go in, and then to present it as a fait accompli, a bit like they have with hate speech laws. We never saw them coming, yet here they are. They just seem to materialize around us like creeping vines while we weren't paying attention, and now we have to look over our shoulder before we express an opinion in Britain. When a third of British people in a YouGov poll say they're afraid to speak their mind on immigration or religion in case they get arrested, we know we've got a serious problem, and it's not Islamophobia, despite what you may hear from our progressive common purpose police, who are always telling us how important diversity is, as if it's got anything to do with them, and also how keen they are to engage with communities, which sounds promising at first, as you think it might mean rooting out the antisocial feral scum who blight the lives of everyone around them day to day, but no, it's just another euphemism for pandering to Islam. Recently, Lincolnshire police were so keen to engage with communities that despite their lack of funds, they found the money to make a video literally promoting Islam in the UK, leading beyond authority and then some. I think most people would say that the best way for police to engage with communities is to enforce the law in a way that makes people understand clearly that this is Britain, not Pakistan or Somalia. Yet only 5% of Muslim so-called honour crime is ever prosecuted. Earlier this year, when a Sikh police officer spoke out about it, he was disciplined for telling the truth. There are thousands of cases of female genital mutilation in Britain every year. It's supposed to carry a 14-year prison sentence. Maybe the police could direct their attention to that if they're not too busy on social media, because we know that somewhere in Britain right now, a young girl's genitals are being illegally mutilated while the police drive past in a rainbow-coloured car on their way to pick up a diversity award. Hundreds of Islamic State terrorists are walking our streets right now, unarrested and undeported. We're all just waiting for one of them to commit mass murder, while our police and prosecution service obsess about law-abiding people using nasty words on the internet. Do you smell a rat? When it seems that you're as likely to be arrested in Britain today for being abusive on Twitter as you are for gang raping a child, maybe even more so. You see, gang raping children often involves sensitive cultural issues, and the police have to tread carefully, as enforcing the law can often offend certain communities. Of course, it's regrettable that thousands of young girls are repeatedly raped and have their lives destroyed by organised gangs of Pakistani Muslims, while the police know all about it for years and years and do absolutely nothing except demonise the victims and arrest their angry parents. But at least nobody in authority gets called an Islamophobe or a racist. And that really is the most important thing, isn't it, Chief Constable, for community cohesion? It's certainly the reason why police were so reluctant to deal with the problem at all until they were shamed into it. And even now, it seems, there's still a reluctance, because recently on Channel 4 News we heard that the grooming gangs in Rotherham are still operating openly for all to see, including the police. And they wonder why they're losing trust and respect and why everyone is so disgusted. On the evidence we've seen, who can doubt that somewhere in England right now a child is being raped by a gang of Pakistani Muslims whose activities are known to our PC, progressive, common purpose police and to social services. But if you get angry about it and tweet the wrong thing, you'll get a knock on the door, you dangerous criminal.